I've always believed that love is a house you build together, brick by brick, with trust as the mortar. For 16 years, I thought Clara and I had constructed something unshakable. Our home in the quiet suburbs of Portland, with its ivy-covered fence and creaky porch swing, was more than just a place. It was a testament to our life together. 2 kids, a golden retriever named Rusty, and a rhythm of shared mornings over coffee and late-night talks about nothing and everything. Clara was my anchor, the woman who could make me laugh even when the world felt heavy. Her hazel eyes, flecked with gold, had a way of seeing right through me, and I thought I saw her just as clearly. But clarity, I've learned, can be an illusion. It started with small things, so small I barely noticed them at first. A glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. A new perfume, sharp and unfamiliar, that clung to her clothes when she came home late from book club. The way she'd linger in the bathroom, the door locked, her voice muffled as she whispered into her phone. I told myself it was nothing. Clara was a paralegal, always juggling deadlines and demanding attorneys. Stress, I figured. Or maybe she was planning a surprise, like the time she secretly organized a weekend trip to the coast for our 10th anniversary. I trusted her. That's what you do when you've built a life together, you trust. But trust can be a blindfold. It was a Thursday in October, the air crisp with the promise of winter, when the first crack appeared. I'd come home early from my job at the architecture firm. A rare slow day. The kids, Emma and Lucas, were at soccer practice, and the house was quiet, save for Rusty's gentle snores from his bed by the fireplace. Clara wasn't home yet, which wasn't unusual. She often stayed late to wrap up case files. I decided to surprise her with dinner, something simple like her favorite lemon herb chicken. As I rummaged through the pantry, I noticed her laptop on the kitchen counter, still open, the screen glowing softly. I don't know why I looked. Maybe it was the way the laptop was left out, careless, like she'd rushed out mid-task. Maybe it was the nagging feeling that had been growing in my gut, a quiet hum I'd ignored for weeks. I sat down, my fingers hovering over the trackpad. It felt wrong, like crossing a line, but I clicked anyway. Her email was open, a thread with someone named J. No last name, just an initial. The subject line was blank, and the messages were short, cryptic. Tonight. One read, timestamped yesterday. Same place, Clara had replied. My heart thudded, a dull ache spreading through my chest. I scrolled up, my eyes scanning for context, for anything to explain this away. Another email, from last week. You make it hard to focus, followed by a winking emoji. Clara's response. Good. I like keeping you on your toes. I sat there, staring at the screen, the words blurring as my mind raced. Who was Jay? A coworker? A client? I tried to picture her at her desk, laughing with someone from the firm, but the image wouldn't stick. It felt personal, intimate. My hands shook as I opened her calendar, synced to her email. There, in bold, was a recurring event, book club, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. But last night, she'd come home after 11, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly mussed. She'd said the group got carried away discussing a novel, something about unreliable narrators. I'd nodded, kissed her forehead, and thought nothing of it. Now, I wasn't so sure. I closed the laptop, my stomach churning. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I needed more than a hunch and a few vague emails. Clara was meticulous, always had been. If something was happening, she'd cover her tracks. I needed to be sure before I shattered the trust we'd built. So I waited. I cooked dinner, smiled when she walked through the door, her new perfume hitting me like a slap. I watched her closely that night, noting the way she avoided my eyes when I asked about her day, the way her laugh sounded forced when Lucas told a story about his soccer coach. The next week, I became a detective in my own home. I checked her phone when she was in the shower, but it was locked with a new passcode. I drove by her office one evening when she said she was working late, only to find the parking lot empty. I even called her friend Sarah, who hosted the supposed book club, under the pretense of planning a surprise for Clara. Sarah hesitated, then said, "Oh, book club? We haven't met in months. Everyone got too busy. The lie hit me like a punch. Clara wasn't at book club. She wasn't working late. She was somewhere else with someone else. The realization settled into my bones, heavy and cold. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was piling up, each piece sharper than the last. I started following her. Felt wrong, invasive, but I needed to know. On Wednesday, I told her I had a late meeting, kissed her goodbye, and watched her leave the house in a navy dress I'd never seen before. I waited 10 minutes, then followed, keeping my distance in our old Subaru. She didn't go to Sarah's house or her office. Instead, she drove to a boutique hotel downtown, the kind with dim lighting and overpriced cocktails. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I watched her walk inside, her stride confident, purposeful. A man was waiting for her in the lobby. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a smile that made my stomach twist. They embraced, her arms lingering around his neck, his hand resting low on her back. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I didn't need to. The way she leaned into him, the way her laugh carried through the glass doors, it was enough. I sat there, frozen, as they disappeared into the elevator. I drove home in a daze, the image of them burned into my mind. That night, when Clara came home, she was all smiles, telling me about the intense book club discussion. I nodded, my throat tight, and poured myself a whiskey. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage, searching for the moment it went wrong. Had I been too focused on work? Had I missed some sign, some need she hadn't voiced? Or was this just who she was now? A woman who could look me in the eye and lie? The next morning, I called in sick and went through her things. I found a receipt in her purse for the hotel bar, dated 2 weeks ago. I found a silk scarf in her closet, one I'd never seen, tucked inside a box with a note. For my favorite distraction, Jay. My hands shook as I held it, the fabric soft and mocking. I wanted to tear it apart, to confront her right then, but I stopped myself. I needed more. I needed to know who Jay was, and I needed to understand why. I started digging deeper. I checked her social media, her work directory, even her old college alumni group. Nothing pointed to a clear Jay. But then I remembered her laptop. I'd seen her type her password once, months ago, when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It was Emma's birthday, followed by a random string of numbers. I waited until she was at work, then tried it. The screen unlocked. Her email was a goldmine. More messages from Jay, now with a full name, Julian Harper. A quick search revealed he was a lawyer at her firm, a partner no less. His LinkedIn photo matched the man from the hotel. Dark hair, smug smile, the kind of guy who looked like he'd never doubted himself a day in his life. The emails grew bolder the further back I went. "Can't stop thinking about you," one read. "Your trouble," Clara had replied, with a heart emoji. There were photos, too, buried in a hidden folder. Clara in a hotel room, her hair tousled, her smile lazy and content. Julian's arm around her in another, both of them laughing at some private joke. I felt like I was drowning. This wasn't a fling, a moment of weakness. This was months, maybe years of deception. She'd built a parallel life, one I wasn't part of, and she'd done it with a man who worked 10 feet from her desk. I wanted to scream, to throw her laptop against the wall, but I didn't. Instead, I copied everything, emails, photos, receipts, onto a USB drive. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed proof. That night, I watched her move through our routine, helping Emma with homework, teasing Lucas about his messy room, and it was like watching a stranger. How could she be so normal, so loving, when she was carrying this secret? I wanted to grab her, shake her, demand why she'd thrown us away, but I didn't. I smiled, kissed her cheek, and played the part of the oblivious husband. Inside, though, something was shifting. The love I'd felt for her, the trust that had defined us, was crumbling. In its place was something darker, colder. I didn't just want answers anymore. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I started planning. Not confrontation, not yet. I needed to know more about Julian, about their relationship, about how far this went. I hired a private investigator, a discreet woman named Karen who came recommended by a colleague. I gave her the USB drive, the hotel name, everything I had. Find out who he is to her, I said. Find out how deep this goes. Karen was thorough. Over the next 2 weeks, she tailed Clara and Julian, documenting their meetings, lunches at a cafe near the firm, late-night drinks at the hotel, a weekend trip to Seattle under the guise of a work conference. She gave me photos, timestamps, even audio of their conversations in public. Clara's voice, soft and teasing, calling him babe. Julian's low chuckle, promising her a night she wouldn't forget. Each piece was a knife, but I kept looking, kept listening. I needed to know every detail, no matter how much it hurt. By the end of those 2 weeks, I had a dossier thick with betrayal. Clara wasn't just cheating. She was living a double life. She'd told Julian she loved him, that she was figuring out how to leave me. She'd laughed about my boring routines, my predictable habits. She'd mocked the life we'd built, the life I thought she cherished. And Julian? He was married too, with a wife and a toddler in a house across town. He'd promised Clara he'd leave his wife, but Karen's reports showed he was still playing the devoted husband at home. The rage grew, quiet but relentless. I didn't want to just confront her. I didn't want a tearful apology or a messy divorce. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The shock, the humiliation, the gut-wrenching loss of everything she thought was secure. I wanted Julian to feel it too. They'd taken my trust, my home, my sense of self. Now I'd take something from them. I started small. I sent an anonymous email to Julian's wife, Lisa, with a single photo from the hotel lobby. No explanation, just the image of Clara and Julian. Their bodies too close, their smiles too intimate. I used a burner account, untraceable. I didn't know what Lisa would do with it, but I knew it would plant a seed. I wanted cracks in their perfect little affair, the same way they'd cracked my world. Then I turned to Clara. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I started mirroring her. Small lies, late nights, vague excuses. I wanted her to feel the unease I'd felt, the slow drip of doubt. I changed my phone passcode, left receipts for dinners I never ate, let her catch me smiling at texts that didn't exist. She noticed, her brow furrowing when I brushed off her questions. Just work, I'd say, echoing her own excuses. I saw the flicker of suspicion in her eyes, and it felt good. It was the first step, a taste of the chaos I was planning. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Clara and Julian thought they were clever, untouchable. They thought they could rewrite our lives without consequence. They were wrong. I was going to dismantle their world, piece by piece, until they understood what they'd done. And when I was finished, they wouldn't just regret it, they'd wish they'd never met. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk, each step deliberate, each moment calculated. I was no longer just Mark, the architect husband who grilled burgers on weekends and helped Emma with her algebra homework. I was someone else now, a man fueled by a quiet, burning rage, orchestrating a plan that felt both foreign and inevitable. Clara's betrayal had fractured something fundamental in me, and the pieces were reshaping into something sharper, more dangerous. I didn't recognize this version of myself, but I didn't hate it either. It was like slipping into a new skin, one that fit the pain I carried. Every day, I played the part of the devoted husband. I kissed Clara good morning, packed Lucas's lunch, walked Rusty around the block. But beneath the routine, I was weaving a web. Karen, the private investigator, became my shadow partner, feeding me updates on Clara and Julian's movements. They were brazen, meeting twice a week now, sometimes at the hotel, sometimes at a rented apartment Julian kept under a false name. Karen got me the address, a sleek loft in a gentrified part of Portland, paid for with cash withdrawals from his personal account. Clara had a key, Karen said. She'd seen her use it. The knowledge was a splinter under my skin. Clara, my Clara, had a key to another man's life. She was building something with him just as we'd built our home, our family. The thought of her in that loft, laughing, touching him, planning a future that didn't include me, it was acid in my veins. But I didn't let it show. I smiled when she came home, asked about her day, even complimented the navy dress she'd worn to meet him. "You look nice," I said one evening, my voice steady, my eyes locked on hers. She blushed, mumbling something about a client meeting, and I nodded like I believed her. The lie was a dance we both performed, but only I knew the steps. I kept digging. Karen's reports were meticulous, but I wanted more than snapshots and timestamps. I wanted to understand the anatomy of their affair, to dissect it until I could see its bones. I hacked into Clara's cloud storage, using a password she'd reused from an old account. There, I found a folder labeled Work Docs, but it was anything but. Voice memos of her and Julian, laughing over wine. A playlist she'd made for him, songs I'd never heard her listen to. Worst of all, a draft of a letter, unsent, where she wrote about starting over with him, about how she felt alive for the first time in years. She didn't mention me or the kids, not once. It was as if we didn't exist. The letter broke something in me, but it also clarified my purpose. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about erasure. Clara was rewriting our life, pretending 16 years of love, of shared dreams, of late-night talks and early morning kisses, meant nothing. Couldn't let that stand. I wouldn't. I started with Julian's wife, Lisa. The anonymous email with the hotel photo had been my opening move, but I needed to tighten the screws. Karen had tracked Lisa's reaction. A tense phone call to Julian, a tearful argument in their driveway. He'd lied his way out of it, claiming the photo was a misunderstanding, a work colleague he'd met for drinks. Lisa wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. I could work with that. I created another burner account and sent Lisa a second email, this time with a photo of Julian and Clara at the loft, their arms entwined, taken through a window by Karen's telephoto lens. I included a single line, "Ask him about the apartment on 12th Street. I didn't sign it, didn't need to. The photo was enough. I imagined Lisa's face, the slow unraveling of her trust, the same sickening realization I'd felt. It wasn't enough to destroy Julian's marriage. I wanted him to squirm, to feel the walls closing in. Meanwhile, I kept Clara off balance. I mirrored her secrecy, letting her catch glimpses of my own affair. I left my phone out once, open to a text thread with a non-existent woman named Rachel, a name I'd chosen because Clara had once said she hated it. The texts were vague but suggestive. "Can't wait to see you again. You make things complicated." When Clara asked about it, her voice tight, I shrugged and said, "Just a friend from work." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't push. I saw the uncertainty in her, the way she started checking my phone when she thought I was asleep. Good. Let her wonder. Let her feel the ground shift beneath her. I wasn't just playing mind games, though. I was building a case, a plan that would hit them both where it hurt most. Julian was a partner at his law firm, a rising star with a reputation for charm and ruthlessness. Clara was his paralegal, but also his leverage, someone he could trust with sensitive cases, someone who knew his secrets. Their affair wasn't just personal. It was professional suicide if it came to light. The firm had a strict policy against workplace relationships, especially between partners and subordinates. A scandal could cost Julian his partnership, his reputation, maybe even his license. I started gathering evidence for that, too. Karen got me copies of their work emails, ones that crossed the line from professional to personal, sent from firm accounts. I found a performance review where Julian praised Clara's dedication in terms that were too warm, too intimate. I even got Karen to dig into Julian's finances, uncovering payments to the loft's landlord that he'd tried to hide through a shell account. It was a house of cards, and I was ready to pull the first one. But I didn't want to stop at their careers. I wanted something personal, something that would cut deeper. Clara loved her reputation, her image as the perfect wife, mother, professional. She thrived on the approval of her friends, her colleagues, our neighbors. I started planting seeds there, too. I mentioned to Sarah, the book club friend, that Clara had been acting strange lately, working late, secretive. I let it slip to our neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, that Clara's new perfume was a gift from someone at work. I didn't accuse, didn't point fingers, just dropped hints, let the gossip mill churn. I saw the looks, the whispers, when Clara wasn't around. The perfect facade she'd built was starting to crack. At home, I kept up the act, but it was getting harder. Every time she smiled at me, every time she touched my arm or laughed at one of Lucas's jokes, I saw her with Julian. I heard her voice in those memos, calling him babe. I read her letter in my mind, over and over, until it was a mantra of betrayal. I stopped sleeping, my nights spent planning, my days spent watching her for signs of guilt, of doubt, of anything that might make her human again. But she was flawless in her deception, her lies as smooth as ever. One night I almost broke. She came home late, her hair damp from a shower she claimed she'd taken at the gym. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when she kissed my cheek and said, "You're too good to me." The knife slipped, nicking my finger, and I stood there, blood dripping onto the cutting board, staring at her. I wanted to scream, to throw the knife, to demand why she'd done this to us. But I didn't. I wrapped my finger in a towel, smiled, and said, "You're worth it." The words tasted like ash. Karen called the next day with a breakthrough. She'd gotten audio from the loft, a hidden mic she'd planted during a cleaning crew's visit. The conversation was damning. Clara and Julian planning a trip to Paris, talking about when we're free, as if their marriages were just obstacles to overcome. Clara said she was tired of pretending, that she wanted to start fresh. Julian promised he'd handle Lisa, that they'd be together soon. I listened to the recording in my car, parked in an empty lot, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. When it finished, I sat there silent, the world narrowing to a single thought. They didn't get to walk away from this. I started planning the endgame. I contacted a lawyer, not one from Julian's firm, but a shark from a rival practice. I laid out everything: Karen's reports, the emails, the photos, the audio. He was clinical, detached, but his eyes lit up when he saw the evidence. "This could ruin them both," he said, almost gleeful. "The firm will fire them to avoid a lawsuit. Julian's partnership is gone, and Clara's career is toast." I nodded, but it wasn't enough. Losing their jobs was a start, but I wanted them to lose more: their security, their confidence, their ability to look in the mirror without shame. I decided to go public, but not in the way they'd expect. I didn't want a courtroom drama or a screaming match in our living room. I wanted something that would hit them where they lived, in the social circles they valued, in the community that propped up their egos. I started with a blog, anonymous, hosted on a server Karen recommended for untraceability. I called it The Truth About Trust, and I posted the first entry, a carefully edited summary of their affair, no names yet, just enough detail to spark curiosity. I shared it on local forums, in neighborhood groups, even emailed it to a few of Clara's coworkers from a burner account. The response was immediate. Whispers, speculation, people wondering who the paralegal and partner were. Clara noticed the shift. She came home one evening, her face pale, and asked if I'd seen that weird blog everyone's talking about. I played dumb, said I didn't have time for gossip. But I saw the fear in her eyes, the way she checked her phone obsessively. Julian was feeling it too. Karen reported he'd canceled a meeting at the loft, citing personal issues. Lisa had confronted him again, this time with the photo from the loft. He was scrambling, and I was just getting started. I escalated. I sent the blog link to Lisa directly, this time with a note: "You deserve to know the truth." I included a screenshot of an email where Julian promised Clara he'd leave Lisa soon. I didn't know if Lisa would act, but I knew she was close to breaking. I wanted her to be the spark that lit Julian's world on fire. At home, I tightened the noose. I left a copy of the hotel receipt on Clara's nightstand, folded inside a book she was reading. I didn't say a word, just watched her find it, her hands trembling as she unfolded the paper. "Where did this come from?" she asked, her voice high, panicked. I shrugged, said I'd found it cleaning. Her eyes searched mine, looking for accusation, but I gave her nothing. I wanted her to stew, to wonder how much I knew. The blog's second post went up a week later, this time with a blurred photo of Clara and Julian at the hotel bar. I didn't name them, but I described their roles: a partner and his paralegal, sneaking around behind their spouses' backs. The post spread like wildfire. Clara's friend Sarah texted her, asking if she'd seen it, if it was about anyone we know. Clara laughed it off, but I heard the strain in her voice when she called Sarah back. She was unraveling, and I was the one pulling the threads. I wasn't done. I had one more move, one that would hit them both where it hurt most. I contacted a reporter from a local paper, one known for digging into corporate scandals. I sent her the dossier, anonymized but detailed, with a note. This is bigger than an affair. It's about abuse of power at a top law firm. I knew she'd bite. Her last expose had taken down a CEO for less. If she ran the story, Julian's career was over, and Clara's with it. They'd be exposed, humiliated, their carefully curated lives reduced to headlines. But I didn't stop there. I wanted Clara to feel the betrayal personally, intimately. I started spending time with a coworker, Ellen, a single mom who worked in our firm's marketing department. I didn't cross any lines. Ellen was just a friend. But I made sure Clara saw us together, laughing at a coffee shop, my hand brushing Ellen's arm. I wanted Clara to feel what I'd felt, watching her with Julian. I wanted her to question, to doubt, to wonder if she was losing me. It worked. She started asking where I was going, who I was texting. One night, she snapped, her voice sharp as she asked, "Are you seeing someone?" I looked at her, my face calm, and said, "Why would you think that?" She didn't answer, but I saw the guilt in her eyes, the fear that her lies were catching up to her. The final piece was the loft. I paid a hacker, a contact of Karen's, to get into the building's security system. I had him send an anonymous tip to the landlord, claiming the apartment was being used for illicit activities. The landlord, a stickler for reputation, launched an investigation. Karen tipped me off that Julian was scrambling to cover his tracks. But it was too late. The lease was under review, and he couldn't risk exposure. By the end of the month, their world was teetering. Lisa was on the verge of leaving Julian. The blog had sparked a firestorm of gossip, and the reporter was sniffing around the firm. Clara was jumpy, her smiles forced, her lies less convincing. I watched it all, my heart a strange mix of pain and satisfaction. I wasn't done yet, though. The final act was coming, and it would be merciless. They'd taken my trust, my love, my life. Now I'd take everything from them. The air in our house had changed, thick with unspoken tension, like the calm before a storm breaks. Clara moved through our routines with a brittleness I hadn't seen before. Her smiles too tight, her laughter a half beat off, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes. She knew something was wrong, even if she didn't know how much I knew. I kept my face neutral, my voice steady, but inside, I was a furnace, the fire of her betrayal stoked by every new piece of evidence Karen sent my way. The dossier was complete now, a ledger of their lies, emails, photos, audio, receipts, all meticulously cataloged. But it wasn't enough to just know. I wanted Clara and Julian to feel the weight of their choices, to see their world collapse under the truth they thought they could hide. I'd spent weeks laying the groundwork, planting seeds of doubt in Clara's mind, stirring chaos in Julian's life. The blog I'd started, The Truth About Trust, was now a local sensation, shared in hushed whispers at coffee shops and PDA meetings. I'd posted 3 entries, each one sharper, more detailed, stopping just short of naming them. The blurred photo of Clara and Julian at the hotel bar had sparked wild speculation, and I'd overheard neighbors wondering if it was that lawyer couple from downtown. Clara's friend Sarah had stopped coming by, her texts to Clara short and distant. The gossip was spreading, a slow poison seeping into their carefully curated lives. Julian was cracking, too. Karen reported that Lisa had confronted him again, this time with the screenshot of his email promising Clara he'd leave her. He'd tried to lie his way out, but Lisa wasn't buying it. She'd hired her own investigator, Karen said, and was digging into Julian's finances. The loft was a problem for him now. The landlord had terminated the lease after the anonymous tip, citing suspicious activity. Julian was scrambling to cover the paper trail, but he was sloppy, panicked. His perfect life was unraveling, and I hadn't even played my final card. At home, I kept Clara on edge. I'd escalated my own charade, letting her catch glimpses of Rachel, the fictional woman I'd invented to mirror her deceit. I left a scarf, deliberately chosen to resemble the one Julian had given her, in my car where Clara would see it. When she asked, her voice sharp, I said, "Oh, just something a friend left behind." Her face paled, and I saw the question in her eyes. Was I doing to her what she'd done to me? I didn't confirm or deny, just let the doubt fester. I wanted her to feel the same gnawing uncertainty that had eaten at me for months. The reporter I'd contacted, Emily Voss, was moving fast. She'd taken the dossier and run with it, sniffing out more dirt on Julian's firm. She'd found a pattern. Julian wasn't just sleeping with Clara. He'd had a history of inappropriate relationships with subordinates, hushed up by the firm to protect their star partner. Emily was building a story, not just about the affair but about a culture of corruption at the firm, with Julian as the centerpiece. I fed her more through an anonymous Dropbox, screenshots of his work emails, audio of him and Clara discussing a case they'd manipulated to favor a client. It was enough to bury him professionally, and Clara would be collateral damage. The story was set to run in a week, and I knew it would be a bombshell. But I didn't want to wait for the headlines. I wanted Clara to face me, to see the truth in my eyes before the world did. I planned the confrontation carefully, choosing a night when the kids were at a sleepover. I cooked dinner, her favorite lemon herb chicken, and set the table like it was any other evening. When she came home, her hair loose, her new perfume sharp in the air, I smiled and poured her wine. She seemed relieved, as if she thought we were slipping back into normalcy. She didn't know this was the last act. We ate in near silence, the clink of forks loud in the quiet. I watched her, memorizing the way she moved, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I'd loved her for so long, and now I was about to tear it all down. When we finished, I cleared the plates and said, "We need to talk." Her eyes flicked up, wary, but she nodded. I pulled out a folder, not the full dossier, just a curated selection. The hotel receipt, the photo from the loft, a printout of her email to Julian, the one about starting over. I laid them on the table, one by one, and watched her face. Her breath caught, her hands trembling as she reached for the photo. "Mark," she whispered, "where did you get this?" "Don't," I said, my voice low, steady. "Don't lie to me anymore. I know everything. Julian, the loft, the trips, the letter you never sent." Her eyes widened, tears pooling, but I didn't stop. "You've been living a lie, Clara, for months, maybe years. You looked me in the eye every day, kissed me, slept next to me, and you were with him." She opened her mouth, but no words came. I pushed forward, my voice cold. "I trusted you. I built my life around you. And you threw it away for what? A sleazy lawyer who's lying to his own wife? You're not even his only one, Clara. He's done this before. You're just the latest." That hit her. She flinched, tears spilling now, but I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. "Mark, I'm sorry," she finally said, her voice breaking. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't mean to?" I laughed, a bitter sound that startled her. "You had a key to his apartment. You wrote about leaving me. You mocked our life. Don't tell me you didn't mean it." She sobbed, her hands covering her face, but I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and played the audio from the loft, her voice calling him babe, laughing about Paris. She froze, her eyes locked on the phone, horror dawning. "How did you?" she started, but I cut her off. "I followed you. I hired someone. I know everything, Clara. And soon everyone else will too." Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" I leaned in, my voice a blade. "The blog, the reporter, Julian's firm, his wife. It's all coming out. You thought you could hide this, but you can't. You're going to lose everything. Your job, your friends, your perfect little life. And Julian, he's going down with you." She was shaking now, her sobs ragged. "Mark, please. The kids. Don't do this. We can fix it." I'll end it with him. I'll do anything. I stood, towering over her. You don't get to beg now. You made your choice. You erased me, Clara. You erased us. Now you live with it. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her with the folder, the evidence of her betrayal staring up at her. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The sound of her crying followed me upstairs, and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of relief. Not joy, not peace, just the cold satisfaction of justice. The next morning, Emily's story broke. The headline was brutal. Top lawyer's affair exposes firm's dirty secrets. It named Julian and Clara, detailing their relationship, the loft, the manipulated cases. The firm issued a statement, suspending Julian pending investigation. Clara's name was dragged through the mud. Her role as paralegal scrutinized. Her reputation shredded. Social media exploded. Old friends unfollowing her. Colleagues distancing themselves. Sarah sent a group text, excluding Clara, saying she couldn't believe it. Lisa left Julian that same day. Karen sent me a photo of him moving out, his face haggard, his bags thrown into a car. She'd filed for divorce, citing the affair, and was going for full custody. The loft was seized by the landlord. The firm's clients were pulling out, and Julian's partnership was revoked. He was radioactive now, his career in ruins. Clara didn't come home that night. She texted, saying she was staying with her sister, that she needed space. I didn't reply. I didn't care. The kids were still at their sleepover, oblivious, but I knew I'd have to tell them soon. I'd protect them, shield them from the worst, but they'd know their mother had broken us. I wasn't done, though. The blog's final post went up that night, this time with names. I laid out their affair in excruciating detail. Every lie, every betrayal. I didn't sign it, but I didn't need to. The post went viral, shared across Portland and beyond. Clara's face was on every local news site, her shame public. Julian's too. They were pariahs now, their lives dismantled brick by brick, just as they'd dismantled mine. I sat on the porch that night, rusty at my feet, a whiskey in my hand. The house felt empty, but not lifeless. It was mine now, not ours. I'd rebuild. For me, for Emma, for Lucas. Clara could have her regrets, her broken dreams. Julian could have his ruined career. They'd wanted freedom, and I'd given it to them. Freedom from everything they'd valued, everything they'd thought they could keep. The revenge wasn't sweet, not the way I'd expected. It was cold, final, like closing a book. I'd loved Clara once with everything I had. Now I felt nothing but the weight of what I'd done. I'd taken their world apart, piece by piece, and I didn't regret it. They'd betrayed me, and I'd made them pay. I sipped my whiskey, the night quiet around me. The storm was over. Now it was time to start again.